This topographic map highlights a very specific, isolated region deep within the mountains of Uttarakhand. That single red dot is Pyravpur. During the day, it looks like a typical scenic village, but the moment the sun goes down, the residents lock their doors and enforce a strict, self-imposed curfew. The reason for this lockdown is tied to the lunar cycle. On every new moon, the night of Amavasya, a distinct auditory anomaly echoes from the old forest path, the piercing scream of a woman. Anyone who has ever tried to follow that sound into the woods has never returned. This localized phenomenon might have stayed hidden, but an unknown source leaked up to the outside world. Aman Verma, a journalist based in Delhi, received an anonymous package containing a weathered diary. Inside, smeared in blood on the first page, was a simple message: Mohini is still alive. Aman packed his recording gear and traveled straight to the coordinates listed on the diary's final page. His arrival in Pyravpur was met with immediate hostility from the locals. One village elder pulled him aside, explicitly warning him to leave before nightfall, stating that Mohini has a particular preference for new arrivals. Aman brushed the warning off. He approached the situation under the assumption that the villagers were simply trapped in a cycle of rural superstition. He didn't realize that treating a physical threat as a mere psychological quirk was going to cost him everything. The epicenter of this local fear was a crumbling mansion positioned right on the edge of the village boundary. The structure was in a state of severe sensory decay: shattered walls, heavily charred doors, and a suffocating, unnatural silence that seemed to swallow ambient noise. Entering the property that night, Aman broke that silence. Almost immediately, an auditory anomaly began echoing down the empty, ruined corridors. It was the sharp, metallic rhythm of heavy anklets. This is a simulation of what Aman's digital viewfinder captured. His equipment began to severely malfunction, processing visual data that his naked eye couldn't perceive. Through the lens, the shape of a pale woman in a white sari with entirely black eyes was standing at the end of the hallway. The encounter quickly escalated from passive observation to active engagement. Before Aman could back away, a disembodied voice whispered directly into his ear, asking if he was going to abandon her too. When he turned around, the hallway was empty, but the dynamic had changed. Mohini was no longer a legend on a page. She was an active presence that had just singled him out. To understand the mechanics of the haunting, Aman sought out the village's oldest resident, Pandit Rudranath. The Pandit provided a historical account dating back 20 years. He described a local girl named Mohini who was treated as an extreme societal outcast due to her unusual physical features. The village harbored a deeply entrenched biological superstition about her. They firmly believed that prolonged eye contact with Mohini would trigger a gradual, irreversible psychological breakdown, driving a person completely insane. Despite this intense social ostracization, Mohini developed a secret, forbidden romantic relationship with a young man named Rajveer. When the couple attempted to formalize their bond, the village hierarchy aggressively intervened, rejecting the union outright. That rejection escalated into lethal mob violence. Under the guise of purging a witch, a group of men captured Mohini and burned her alive. As she died in the flames, she screamed a final vow. She would drag everyone down with her. The ensuing haunting was the direct fallout of systematic mob violence. The village was suffering through a brutal cycle of retribution, fueled entirely by their own collective, unresolved guilt. Aman wanted to document empirical proof of this cycle. At 2 a.m., he hiked deep into the forbidden forest path and began setting up his recording equipment. Within minutes, the environment violently shifted. The wind accelerated. The tree canopy began shaking uncontrollably, and the lithium batteries in Aman's camera completely drained in a matter of seconds. Then she appeared. The figure emerged from the pitch-black woods, rapidly gliding toward Aman. Her physiology was horrifyingly inverted, her feet twisted backward. When Aman turned to run, the physical path back to the village had simply vanished. Fleeing blindly into the brush, Aman tripped over a massive physical anomaly hidden in the undergrowth, a human skeleton. Resting inside the ribcage was a tarnished locket containing a photograph of Mohini and Rajveer. By cross-referencing this discovery with local records, Aman exposed a massive secret. The man who orchestrated the mob execution of Mohini was the village head, and crucially, Rajveer was his own son. When Rajveer tried to rescue Mohini, his father had him murdered to maintain control. This diagram maps out the connection. These two deaths merge into a single nightmare, the direct result of the village head's decision to execute his son's lover and bury the evidence. The climax of this investigation arrived on the final night of the new moon. Aman and Pandit Rudringnath barricaded themselves inside the ruined mansion, which was now violently trembling, its walls literally seeping blood. Mohini materialized directly in front of them, but her physical form was severely degraded. Her face bore catastrophic burn trauma, and her neck was twisted completely backward. The Pandit desperately chanted protective mantras, but she casually bypassed the auditory barrier, physically throwing him against the wall. Cornered and terrified, Aman held up Rajveer's locket. The effect was instantaneous. The entity froze as her physical form seemed to soften, her terrifying aggression giving way to a sudden, visible grief. But the moment of calm was short-lived. The village head burst into the mansion, screaming that the girls should never find peace. His refusal to repent acted as an immediate catalyst, reigniting her violent state in a fraction of a second. The village head was instantly levitated off the ground by an invisible kinetic force. His screams echoed through the estate for a terrifying moment, before his lifeless body was violently slammed back to the floor. The primary objective of the 2-decade-long vengeance had been fulfilled. By dawn, the mansion was entirely silent, and the oppressive atmosphere had vanished. Aman packed his gear, assuming the historical debt had finally been settled. With the entity supposedly at rest, he began the long drive back to Delhi. The final recording reveals a terrifying truth. Aman is in the front seat, but Mohini is visible in the back, smiling through her burns. The haunting is no longer confined to the mountains. Aman has physically brought the